Hi, I'm Chloe. Welcome back to my channel. Today, as you can tell, I'm dressed up, so you know what that means. It's an announcement video. I feel like that's all I really do on my channel anymore, is do announcement videos for my different readathons. But yeah, hopefully I can fix that. I'm still editing some videos. Yeah, a lot has happened the last couple of months, okay? But I am gonna try and come back to this, okay? Anyway, today, Mermay. Now, if you haven't been here before, Mermay is a readathon that I host every single year. I think this year is the third year in a row that we're doing it. Originally, Mermay is a drawing challenge where for the whole month of May, you have a daily prompt. And with that daily prompt, you draw a mermaid. So for example, if the prompt is poison, you can draw a mermaid that's like poisonous, or like an apothecary, or essentially just design as a poisonous plant, just whatever you make of it. And so I always loved that challenge. I always loved drawing a different mermaids. Over the past couple of years, I haven't been able to participate really. Mainly because I've been in a drawing slump. I haven't really been drawing as much as I used to. Like back when I first joined Mermay, I used to draw every single day. I drew the prompt in the morning and in the afternoon I posted it. It was really that simple. But yeah, I don't do that anymore. I'm gonna try and this year actually participate in most of the prompts. And so when it came to readathon, I just thought I have an unhealthy obsession with like mermaids. I have an unhealthy obsession with them. It's like a thing I love so much and I wish more people would write books about. Like, I know there are plenty of mermaid books out there, but most of them don't really capture the whimsy. You know what I mean? I don't know. Like, I have read mermaid books that are a lot more horror, and then I read the Waterfire Saga, which is also the book series that got me into reading, and also the very inspiration for this readathon, where I was like, you know what, I want to reread the series. Let me make a readathon to hold me accountable to actually reread it. I've never read one of the books in that series for the readathon. I hope this year that changes, because I do have that book on my TBR for this year. But anyway, let's get into it. I have my iPad right here because I have everything on there. Again, if you haven't been here before, the way we do these readathons, I always like to have a kind of like a board game vibe with it. Like, I'll probably put it up on the screen right here somewhere so you can see what I mean. And essentially every single square on the board is a prompt. 4 of the spaces are free spaces. Wow, I'm very lit up. Hold on. 4 of the spaces are free spaces, which means that you don't technically need to read anything like mermaid. It's like a wild card. It's like a free space. You can read whatever the fuck you want. You don't even have to read them. They're like optional spaces in case you want to read an extra book, or like there's a book you wanted to read but you don't really feel like it fits one of the prompts because you're a mood reader, or just in general you wanted to, there's a book for a book club or something like that. That's one, like you can use those guys for that. Obviously the starting prompt is a free space. Then the second one is mermaid. Very simple. So that would mean any book that has mermaids. It doesn't technically have to be like the main focus, but you know, mermaids are in the book. Like for example, I think of The Mermaid, the Witch, and the Sea. There's a mermaid in the title, but the mermaids aren't as present in the book. It's mainly towards the end, but still that would still count because it still has mermaids. And it doesn't technically have to be like mermaids. It can also be a siren. It can be like any kind of humanoid sea creature that you want, basically. Also, these prompts are always going to be very like loose, I think is the word. Basically, you don't actually have to like think too much over it. Just like whenever you see the prompt, the first thing that you think of, or like what you think it may mean. Then the second one is a reread. So this is, I guess, technically also kind of a free space. It's just like a reread. It doesn't technically have to be a mermaid book. It can also just be something surrounding the ocean. It can be something very summery. Anything that you think of like kind of like similar vibes to mermaids, basically. So it can be a reread of your favorite book that takes place by the beach. For example, I would consider rereading Beach Read for it. Or I don't know, anything that fits kind of like the ocean summer vibe. I know that May is technically still in spring. I mean, it is in spring. It's still very much spring, but it's kind of like, you know, the break into summer and have like those little vibes there. So yeah, it doesn't technically have to take place in summer, but you know what I mean. Then the next prompt is drowning. This can be literally anything. Also, if there's any of the prompts that are like part of the title, for example, Mermaid, The Mermaid, The Witch in the Sea, or Drowning, I have Dark and Drowning Tide by Alison Saff. That would count. It's not technically about mermaids, it's not technically about oceans or any of that, so it still contains the word drowning in the title, or if a character in the book drowns. Last year for Mermaid, I read Rolling in the Deep, and that one contained essentially researchers or documentary people, I don't remember exactly, and they all get drowned by this siren, by this mermaid, so that one would also count. I think I actually had the same prompt last year, and that's actually the prompt I read that book for. So the next one is water on the cover. Again, very simple. You can, in my camera I just saw The Wicked King. That one would count because there's water on the cover. Again, any of the books on the Waterfire saga, because there's water on the cover. The Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea, because technically she is in the water. Again, The Mermaid, The Witch in the Mermaid, The Witch in the Sea as well, because it has water on the cover. You get the gist. It's a very like loose prompt. Again, like I said, you can take them however you wish. It doesn't even have to be an ocean, it can be just any body of water. Hell, you can even argue if a book has a glass of water on the cover, that also counts. I'm not gonna argue with you. Bend and snap and break that bitch however far you want. The next one is also again a free space, so whatever you want to read. The next one is a sapphic romance. For those who don't know what sapphic means, it's essentially any women loving women stories. It means lesbians, bisexual women, also including non-binary people. So any sapphic story. If you're not sure if a book is sapphic, for example, if one of the main characters or the main love interest is non-binary, then it's always a good idea to check with the author if the author has posted any, because you know how sometimes authors, whenever promoting their book, they have like different like little tropes on the side of it. If it doesn't say sapphic, I wouldn't say it's sapphic, but if you can, feel free to ask the author, try and check, do some research. Anything can count for that. Yes, this also includes trans women, absolutely. However, the one rule I am going to put on this one is that it has to be a main romance. Like it's not a side couple, it's a main couple. But again, I'm not gonna decide what you can and can't read, just whatever you feel like picking up for these prompts. The next one is also again a very loose one. It is graphic novel / manga, or that can also be a manhwa or anything, or a comic, whatever. I remember reading, what was it again? I don't remember, it's fine. This can be anything, it doesn't necessarily have to be, again, about oceans or mermaids. I did find recently a manga, I think it also got turned into an anime, actually. Let me grab it. It is This Monster Wants to Eat Me. And from what I gathered, this was also like a sea monster. So this would definitely count. I actually did not consider this one for the readathon yet. I just remembered it because I was thinking of Providence Girls by Morgan Dante, which also has a sea creature, monster, girl, horror type shenanigans. It's one of my favorite books of all time. I have it right here. It's this one. I would definitely, if you consider reading this, I would definitely tell you to check trigger warnings. They're at the very front of the book, but I would still do some research. If you want, I can post them in the comments if anyone wants to know them. This is also a book that I read for the readathon. I actually finished it for the readathon last year because I started it for the Trans Rights readathon, didn't end up finishing it, and then I decided to finish it for the Mermaid readathon. And I stopped. I am actually considering rereading it this year because I was planning on rereading it for the Trans Rights readathon, but I again didn't get to it, so I may reread it as well this year. By the way, FYI, if you end up finishing the board and all the prompts early, and like you still have a chunk left of the month, or just in general you finish the board and you want to go again, you can go again. There's no limit of how many times you can use this board. You can have multiple books per prompt. Like, I'm gonna explain how the board works in a minute, but yeah, you can have more than just one book if that's what you want. But yeah, so when it comes to graphic novels that would fit like the Mermaid, ocean vibes, I would definitely recommend This Monster Wants to Eat Me, which is also Yuri, so it's also sapphic, so it can also count for the sapphic romance. Another mermaid manga that I have is, God, Mermaid Scales and the Town of Sands is also a manga that I have. It's thick, so I don't think I'm gonna read that one for the readathon. Anyway, it doesn't have to be, again, about mermaids. For example, I actually originally planned on reading, I think, a volume of Moriarty Picture or of Apothecary Diaries, actually, because I didn't think of This Monster Wants to Eat Me, which I'm kind of embarrassed about because I literally bought this earlier this year. But anyways, the next prompt is mythology. So that is, again, a very blanket term, any kind of mythology that you want. I think I actually added to my TBR The Gentlest of Wild Things by Sarah Underwood. I also recently bought this, and again, it's sapphic. And yeah, I think it's one of the only mythology books that I still have on my shelf. It also doesn't have to be a retelling. If you want to read an actual, like, book about mythology, go off, girl. I think most of the other mythology books that I do have, I'm gonna keep for another readathon I'm planning for July. So you're not done seeing me with my announcement videos, okay? But yes, again, it can be any kind of mythology. It can be Greek mythology, it can be Norse mythology, it can be Egyptian mythology, it can be Chinese mythology, African mythology, whatever mythology floats your boat, basically. And it also, again, doesn't have to necessarily take place near the ocean or have mermaids involved. It can just be whatever. I definitely added some of these prompts just to kind of like make them for everyone. Although the theme is mermaids, it's not a necessity, okay? I just have an obsession with mermaids and I really wanted to have an excuse to read more mermaid books, and so anyone who also loves mermaids can also join in. The next one is a retelling, so I think this actually fits well if you have multiple mythology books that you wanted to read, but you don't necessarily want to read multiple books for a single prompt. Well, then you have one for mythology and one for a retelling, because it can be any kind of retelling. It can be just a classic retelling, like a Sherlock Holmes retelling. It can be a fairy tale retelling, it can be a mythology retelling, it can be any kind of retelling. I also would clarify that any book that technically is heavily inspired by another like classic tale also works for this. I specifically think of the Sherlock Holmes series, which is a series that I think it's there. Okay, y'all can see it, but okay. It's a series that essentially follows the descendants of Sherlock Holmes and John Watson, and so that technically is not a retelling, but I would still count it within this prompt. Again, Ben and Snap and Break That Bitch. Another book that would count for is Bitterthorn by Kat Dunn, which is technically not a fairy tale retelling, but upon reading it, I did notice some heavy inspiration drawn from fairy tales like Cinderella, Sleeping Beauty, Beauty and the Beast, along with some other like ones sprinkled in there. So yeah, I would also recommend that one. It's, again, whatever floats your boat. It can also be just pretty much anything by Kailin Bayron, because I know that Cinderella is Dead is a Cinderella retelling. Sleep Like Death, I am aware, is a Snow White retelling. Then we have A Poisoned Heart and This Wicked Fate, which are Greek mythology retellings, if I remember correctly. So those all also count. And the next one is also, again, a free space, so read whatever the hell you want. Next prompt is trance. So I think actually for this one I'm planning on rereading Providence Girls, because the author is also trans, but this is, again, any book with a trans main character specifically, or also a trans author. I read a couple of books by trans authors this year already. I read Hell Followed With Us by Andrew Joseph White. I also read The Spirit Bears Its Teeth by Andrew Joseph White. I read How to Lose a Goblin in 10 Days, which I don't think the author is trans, but one of the main characters is non-binary, so that would also count. It's also really fucking cute. There's also Pets by, oh my god, I forget their name. I don't own Pet physically, so that is also, again, very easy, very pick and choose. Again, doesn't have to be about mermaids, it doesn't have to be about the ocean, it can just be whatever trans books you have. I think the main thing about these readathons that I always try to do is have the prompts be as flexible as possible, just so that anyone who wants to join doesn't feel the need to go out and buy books. It's definitely more of like a help you decrease your TBR type vibe. So that's why most of the books that I am going to be reading for the readathon are the ones I already have on my shelves. I Actually, every year whenever I look at prompts that I could use for the readathon, I always look at my own shelves. The next prompt is translated. Now this one is a bit more tricky, so I'm gonna like explain it a bit more and have an actual like teeny rule down. For example, for me, English is not my first language, but I mainly read in English. So technically, since English is not my first language, I can just read any book, like whatever. But what I technically mean by this prompt is translated from a language that you don't usually read in. For example, I have the Winter's Promise, I think it was the name. Where is it? I can't find it. Here it is. A Winter's Promise, which is originally written in French. I do speak French, but I own it in English, so technically it's translated. And since I don't usually read in French, I actually rarely read in French unless it's manga. So yeah, that one would count. But for example, a book that is in English translated to French wouldn't count for me because I mainly read in French. I don't know if that makes sense, but again, it's a teeny tiny rule. I'm pretty sure most people who are gonna watch this probably have their first language being English. I don't know why I worded it that way. It's fine. But yeah. So it can also literally just be manga, it can be a danmei, it can be a baiha, it can be anything that isn't originally the language that you usually read in. I think for this one, I always plan, like I always have this prompt for translated just because I think it's important to read translated books. I always try to include a manga with this just because I am a slow reader, so trying to fit multiple mangas in between these prompts really helps me. But yeah, like I said, a Winter's Promise would work for me. Also, The Beauty's Blade, which is the first and only published by her, like translated. So that one would count for me too. Any of my manga, any of my danmei that I still haven't read would count. I'm trying to find books that weren't originally written in English. I mean, I also have some books by Japanese authors that are translated. Anyway, you get the point. Next is out of your comfort zone. So what that basically means is a genre that you don't technically reach for. Like for example, I pretty much read any genre, but the genres that I reach for the least, like the moment that I find out that it's these genres, I technically just second guess myself, but it's not like a turn off way. It's just not something that I'm usually comfortable with, which is usually sci-fi, or well, I guess that also counts as sci-fi, but any book that is like kind of like dystopian, world-ending, post-apocalyptic, like zombie apocalypse type thing. It's not something that I reach for just because it's not the type of genre that I like, which is why when it came to Andrew Joseph White, which I read 2 of his books during the Trans Rights Readathon, I read Hell for the Withers first, which is a dystopian apocalyptic type book. I didn't like that one as much as I did The Spirit Bears Its Teeth, which is a lot more gothic, like horror. I did really like the horror aspects of Hell for the Withers, so I think that's what carried me also. But yeah, so those are the type of books that I wouldn't really reach for. So when it came to this prompt, I looked at my shelves and I actually have 2 sci-fi books that I haven't read yet, which is Gideon the Ninth and then also Gear Breakers. I think it's right behind the corner right there. I can't see it right now. It's fine. I know that it's there, but you get what I mean. Those are 2 sci-fi books I own on my shelves. I also have Darkness Outside Us, which is a gift that a friend once gave me. I haven't read it yet. So I guess those 3 would count for me because they're sci-fi and they're not usually books I would reach for. I think the main thing with Gideon the Ninth is I love the description of lesbian necromancers in space. It's what people usually pitch it as. So that's what got me excited. And then with Gear Breakers, I got excited because again, it's sapphic. So yeah, I think those are actually the only ones that I have that would fit for me personally. I guess Foul Lady Fortune by Chloe Gong would also work because I think those are still like within the same like sci-fi fantasy verse that she writes in when it comes to her Shanghai series. Then the next one is Monster, which again can be anything that you like think of. It can be a monster romance, it can be, again, I guess technically this is kind of like a monster romance, you get what I mean. It can be a sea monster, it can be whatever, it can be a demon, it can be any kind of monster romance that you can think of if you want to read a monster romance. It can also just be, for example, again, Hell Followed With Us, which is not technically monsters, but it is like very like You know what I mean? Whatever you think of when you think of monster. Like, you can read Dracula, you can read a Dracula retelling, you can read Frankenstein, or like something like Frankenstein, or something that was heavily inspired by Frankenstein. For example, the Stalking Jack the Ripper series, I think, was heavily inspired by both Frankenstein and some like of the historical like murderers, like obviously Jack the Ripper. Then there's also Hunting Prince Dracula, which has like it doesn't actually have vampires, but it definitely has like more of like that like blood sucking, like, I don't know, it was very strange. It's one of my least favorite books in the series, but apparently I'm the only one that thinks that way. A lot of people really love that book in that series, so ignore me maybe. Then the third one is Escaping from Houdini, and then the fourth one is Capturing the Devil, which actually mentions H.H. Holmes in the same way that like the first book mentioned Jack the Ripper, like was very much around Jack the Ripper, and then now the fourth book is around H.H. Holmes. So yeah, whatever you think of. It doesn't have to be a literal monster. It can also just be a book that, you know, like for example, yeah, a murder mystery that has a horrific person in it that could also classify as a monster. Or, you know, evil billionaires, I don't know. Then the final prompt is also a free space. So again, you can read whatever you want for it. I like to have like free spaces in between a certain amount of prompts. Just like you start off with a free space, 4 books in you have a free space, and 4 books later you have a free space, and then 4 books later you finish with a free space. Again, you don't have to read the free spaces. They're like really just up for whatever you want. They're not like, they're technically extra prompts, because I also have a story graph challenge for it. I think that's what they're called. And those free spaces are, I have a notification from my phone. Those free spaces are just like extra prompts that don't necessarily count towards like the goal of the readathon. It's just like if you want to read an extra book. Okay, now how does the board work? Honestly, whatever you feel like using it. If you just want to use it as like a prompt list, so just like go down the board like that is completely fine. Or if you want to roll the dice. I like to roll the dice because it's fun. I think it's fun to just roll the dice, and whatever number it lands on is a book they pick. This is also where I mentioned you can have multiple books per prompt, because if you roll a dice and you land on a square they already read a book for, you can either skip it, re-roll, or you can decide to read another book for that prompt. Honestly, it's whatever you feel like doing. Also, I mentioned the story graph challenge. It's not the goal to 100% complete it. It's really just the goal to read as much as you can. So again, if you read multiple books for a certain prompt, it's not gonna count as an extra read within the challenge, since technically you didn't finish another prompt. My camera cut off. But it's, again, whatever you feel like. Either that, or again, you can just, you know, look at the board. I want to pick this prompt because I want to read this book. Mood reader. It really is just that flexible. You don't actually have to like play it as a game board. You can literally just go down the board, or if you're a mood reader, just pick whatever prompt you want, or you can do all of them at the same time. I know that what I sometimes do is that I start off rolling a dice, and then when we're a bit into the readathon and I'm a bit more in the mood for something else, I tend to just like look at the prompts, not even look at my TBR, and just go to my shelves and be like, okay, technically this one would fit. So again, the rules are bendy. They're bendy in the ink machine, okay? They're not that solid. Okay, next let me talk about my own TBR. Before we move on, there's something very important that I forgot to mention, is that for the readathon I will be doing some streams over on Twitch. It'll either be co-working or some games, but I'll be raising money for Mermaids, which is a queer organization. And I actually saw a mutual streamer who was raising money for Mermaids during the Trans Rights Readathon. So I thought Mermay, because I was already looking into different organizations I could raise money for this readathon. So I thought Mermaids is basically perfect. So yes, I'll put on the screen a little bit more information about them. I'll also leave a link to their website, and yeah, I'll have a Tiltify up just because I think that's easier for people, especially when they're on mobile. I noticed that there's like usually some like struggles with the Twitch mobile app when it comes to donations. So you can either, so that way it's just like a command in chat, and then you actually have the link to the Tiltify to donate the money. It'll be donated to mermaids directly. I haven't decided yet on like goals or incentives, so that'll be something that I post over on my Instagram, so I'll leave a link to that too down below. This is technically part of my book club, which is the Potions and Poisons book club. I always get a tongue twist with that one. So I'll also be posting it over on that account too, just in case you want to stay updated. If you can't join the streams because either you don't have Twitch or you don't have time to join, that is completely fine. The link will still be up in my link tree, so that throughout the readathon, if you want to donate, you can always do that too. And for those who can join the streams but can't afford to donate, which is completely fine in this economy, I completely fucking understand. Another great way to help is to lurk and just hang out in chat. When it comes to lurking, Twitch is kind of being an asshole about it, because they automatically, whenever they see people lurking, they automatically like assume that it's bots, so then they don't count towards the like viewer count, and also don't count for the ad revenue. So if you are going to join the streams and lurking, which I always appreciate, it would be nice if you actually sometimes pop in with just like an emote, or just like say I'm still here, or like mention what you're reading, what you're doing, anything to basically just remind Twitch that you are in fact a human being and not a fucking bot. But yeah, and if neither of those things, you can join the streams and you can't donate, another great way to help is to share. Like when I post about the readathon on my Instagram, it's always very helpful to share. It's also very great to help like spread the word that this readathon is happening and that it's for a good cause. So yes. This is something I completely forgot to plan out to talk about. So it's if I sound like I'm rambling more than usual, that's why. Anyway, to the TBR. Okay, so for the very first prompt, you know what, let me first mention my my free spaces. My first free space is going to be The Siren, the Song, and the Spy, which is the sequel to The Mermaid, the Witch, and the Sea by Margaret Okuda Hall. I read The Mermaid, the Witch, and the Sea like a while back, a few years ago. I think it's been like 5 years almost. Goddamn. I think I read it when I first moved back to Belgium. Oh my god. August is gonna make 5 years since I moved back to Belgium. Anyway, yes. I love The Mermaid, the Witch, and the Sea specifically because it heavily reminded me of The Priory on Street, which is one of my favorite books of all time. I'm trying to point at it. There you go. I can never point in the view because I'm like, there we go. Anyway, the next free space is Amelia, If Only by Becky Albertalli. I think you can actually see it behind me right here. Yeah, it's right here. Which is again by Becky Albertalli. I have read What If It's Us by her. I think it's actually the only book by her that I've ever read. I do own Here's to Us. I still need to read that one, but I'm planning on reading What If It's Us first because it's been so long. I think it's been definitely over 5 years. I think it could be like 7 or 8 years ago. Anyway, that doesn't matter. The next free space that I'm gonna use up is Gwen and Art Are Not in Love, which is again a book that I've had on my TBR for a while. Yeah, it's right there. She's right here. It's a book that I've had on my TBR ever since it came out, and I never got to it. So I think it's time. Especially because I saw that the author released, I don't know if it's in the same series or just like similar vibes, because the cover looks similar and the titles are also similar, so that's why I assumed it was a series, but it could also just be like a series of standalone type vibe, you know what I mean? Anyway, next is going to be Girls of Paper and Fire, which is a book that I actually read a few years ago. Funnily enough, I finished it on my birthday, and it was not a very fun book to finish on my birthday. I loved it because let's go lesbians, but also I did not look up trigger warnings for this book. and I got very scared very quickly. I think it was actually one of the very first books that I read that had like where I thought, okay, maybe I should have looked up trigger warnings for this shit. And since I saw that I could get the rest of the series on Kobo Plus, I thought, you know what, let me reread this one, because I've been thinking of rereading it for a long time, but I never got around to it. And then I was like, you know what, for the readathon, let me look at some books that I don't know when I'll get to, if not now. But okay, so those were my first free spaces. The very first prompt, which is Mermaid, for me is going to be May's book club pick for the Potions and Poisons read, which is The Fate of Stars by S.D. Simper, which is a book that I actually had on my radar for a very long time, but I never got around to reading it, and I don't know why. And so I thought, you know what, for Mermaid, let me find a mermaid book, and I saw this one, and it was like, oh, perfect. It's really because I always try to look for books that have an audiobook as well for the readathon, specifically on Libro FM or on Kobo Plus or on Everand, which are the 3 places that I mainly look for audiobooks. So yeah, and I'm pretty sure that if those three places have an audiobook for these books, I'm hungry. I don't know if you can hear that. Oh, it's still going. Okay. I'm sure that if those 3 sites have the audiobooks, I'm also pretty sure that other websites also have them. Speaking of Libro FM, shameless plug, but with Libro FM subscription, you also get an affiliate link, so that any friends or anyone that signs up for subscription with that link, both you and I get a free audiobook with it. Thank you very much. Not only that, Libro FM is also a really great alternative for Audible because they use the same credit system, but unlike Audible, you also directly support a indie bookstore of your choice. Why can't I speak? Whenever you sign up for a subscription. So when you first sign up, you get to choose whatever indie bookstore you want. Either it's one that's near you or one that, you know, is somewhere else, or a queer one, or whatever. Any kind of indie bookstore you can find on there, you can pick it. And some of them actually have like promotion codes, so then at checkout you can get another extra free audiobook. If you're looking for a ethical alternative to Audible, I suggest Libro FM, and if you'd be so kind and use my referral link, because again, both you and I get a free audiobook, okay? Like, if you sign up with it, you get a free audiobook with it, I get a free audiobook with it, okay? So, you know, anytime I talk about Libro FM, I have to make that plug just because it's different. Also, with Audible, you don't actually own the audiobooks that you buy. Like, you can only listen to them on Audible. However, with Libro FM, there's no DRM. So, you can literally download the audiobooks, and like, I put my audiobooks on my MP3 player. You can literally, were you aware that you were able to own the audiobooks that you buy? Well, you can with Libro FM. Anyway, next is Dark Tide by Jennifer Donnelly, which is the 3rd book in the Waterfire saga. I read the book 1 and 2. I reread them a few years ago, but then I ended up not continuing my reread, and so I was like, you know what? This year is the year that I finish it. This one is also on Kobo Plus. No, on Libro FM, sorry. However, I saw that the last book in the series is not on Libro FM, so I don't know if I should like suggest it, because I saw that it is technically on Libro FM, just not available in Belgium, which is phenomenal. I love it here, Grandpa. Maybe I could just like email them and see if they can get, you know, the rights to it. I think what they said, that if there's books that aren't available on Libro FM but are Audible exclusives, it is helpful to email the publishers saying that they would like to have the audiobook on Libro FM. I love Libro FM because, especially on Threads, I don't have Twitter, so I don't know if they're also active on there, but on Threads they are very active. Whenever there's mention of someone wanting to switch from Audible or having an ethical alternative, they're always there in the comments, and they're not shy about throwing shade at Audible, okay? I fucking love them. Also, their customer support is really good, because when my friend signed up with my referral link, she actually was missing an audiobook. So I think technically if you sign up with a subscription with my referral link, or any referral link for that matter, and also with an additional like promo code, I think there's like something that happens in the system that doesn't technically count either one of the 2 extra free audiobooks that you get. So my friend actually emailed them asking about it, and without even like questioning it, they immediately added a credit to their account. I'll also add like a little confirmation on the screen. I'm doing free promo for this app, okay? This is not paid at all. I also put a confirmation or not on the screen because I for this month's book club pick for the month of April, I bought an audiobook on Libro FM, not realizing that I could also get it on Everand, which is the other audiobook app that I use, but that one doesn't have like credits. It works with like a limited amount of hours that you get every month. So yeah, that is Everand. I'll also leave that one link down below. But I didn't realize I could also get it on Everand. So then I am planning on emailing Libro FM asking if I can get it reimbursed, because I bought it like not knowing I could actually get it. I'm not gonna say I could get it somewhere else, but I'm just gonna say that I bought it by mistake, because it really was a mistake. I usually plan out where I am going to read the audiobooks, because I think I really picked this book club pick for the fact that I could get the audiobook so easily on Everand. So yeah, I'll leave that here somewhere, because I did see on Threads that someone said that their daughter accidentally bought a audiobook with the mother's credit, and Libro FM responded by saying to contact by email customer support, and they'll help them further from there. So I'll let y'all know if you buy an audiobook either by accident or whatever, it's not technically the one that you want to have, or you accidentally buy it in a different language, I'll let y'all know if you can actually get your money back or not. So I'll keep y'all updated, okay? Anyway, next is Into the Drowning Deep by Mira Grant, which I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, is the same author as Rolling in the Deep. I think this is also the same series. I think Rolling in the Deep was a prequel or a novella part of the series. I don't know. I could be wrong. However, I am excited about this one because what I know about this book is that, again, it has mermaids, but also autistic mermaids. And as an autistic bitch, I got very excited when I heard that. Right, I forgot to mention about the prompt. So yeah, The Fate of Stars is for the mermaid prompt, then Dark Tide by Jennifer Donnelly is for the reread prompt, and then Into the Drowning Deep is for the drowning prompt. The next, for the water on the cover, I am actually planning on reading A Dark and Drowning Tide by Alison Saft, which is not technically the first book by them that I own. I also have Down Comes the Night, which I haven't read yet, and with my own rules, I technically should read Down Comes the Night first. I really want to read this one, okay? So anyway, okay, next for the sapphic romance, I'm planning on reading A Restless Truth by, I have A Marvelous Fate right here, by Freya Marshka, which is the sequel to A Marvelous Fate. A Marvelous Light. I read this one like 2 years ago or something. I really should reread this one. However, what I like is that the series is a series of standalone, so technically you don't have to read them in order to understand the different books. And I'm glad about that, because when I read this one, I made a mistake looking at the schedule for the readathon, and so I was like, I need to finish this before the end of the readathon. So I literally binged it the entire morning with the audiobook. And essentially, I don't remember a single thing. I remember flashes, but nothing else. So I really need to reread this, okay? I don't think I'm going to reread it like for this readathon, but I'm definitely considering rereading it soon. And then next, for the graphic novel prompt, I originally had put Love Bullet. Hold on. I originally put Love Bullet, which is again the manga that I got recently. It's also Yuri. Yeah, that's the one that I originally put on there, but I think after this video, I'm actually going to change it to This Monster Wants to Eat Me. But I'm not sure. Oh my god, why do I have a hiccup? But I'm not sure, because Love Bullet technically only has 2 volumes, I think. Meanwhile, This Monster Wants to Eat Me, I think, has multiple volumes. But anyways, it's fine. We'll see. It's either one of these 2 that are going to be on my TBR, or maybe both. We'll see. The next, for mythology, yeah, I remember correctly, it is going to be Gentlest of Wild Things. I had no idea that this author wrote queer books, because I know that this author also wrote Lies We Sing to the Sea. I don't know if that one's also queer or not, but I did find out that this one is sapphic. It is a reimagining of the Cupid and Psyche story. I'm not that familiar with Psyche. I have heard of Cupid. I, not gonna lie, thought that was a man. I need to catch up on my Greek mythology shenanigans, okay? I'm more of an Egyptian mythology girly. I grew up loving Egyptian mythology. Finding a fantasy book by an actual Arab author that has Egyptian mythology in it and is also faking sapphic is impossible. If anyone has any recommendations, please. But yeah, anyway, that's a little ring right there. I wanna try and find sapphic Egyptian mythology books that aren't by white authors, that whitewash characters and are basically erased. Even before I added the sapphic part to it, I tried to look for Egyptian mythology books that are fantasy. Kid you not, all of them are by white authors. What is going on? Anyway, side tangent over. Next one is a retelling, which is also going to be a reread for me, which is Girl, Soup and Thorn by Melissa Bashardust, which I read. I think this was actually the very first sapphic book I ever read, if I'm not mistaken. I read this one so long ago. Yes, I am pretty sure this was the very first sapphic book I ever read. I didn't hate it, but also didn't love it. I think the plot was very like simple, very like on the nose. It was very obvious who the twist villain was going to be, but I still loved it. I still adored it. I think this was definitely the beginning of me wanting to read more sapphic books, and at the time still not realizing that this is the type of stories that I need. So yeah, I wanted to reread it just to kind of like see if I still enjoyed it as much as I did when I first read it. I read it quite fast because I don't know if you can tell, but the text is very large and it's not that long of a book. Plus the page is also very thick. 311, so yeah, it's not that long. I don't know if they're still written how long it took me to read this. Doesn't look like it. I don't think by this time I was still adding. Oh wait, no, I did. Oh wow, June 5th to June 9th. I read this in 4 days. I could never. Like, I look at a 300-page book and I'm like, that's gonna take me like 2 weeks at the bare minimum. I don't know what I was on when I first started reading. Oh my god. Anyway, next is the trans prompt, which I am going to be rereading The Mermaid, the Witch, and the Sea for that one, because one of the main characters is actually gender fluid. So yeah, but according to the author, it still counts as sapphic, even though one of the main characters is gender fluid. I have no idea how people feel about that, but yes, it's still queer, okay? And yeah, like I said, I loved this book when I first read it. I really want to reread it before I read the sequel, which, like I said, is going to be in my free spaces. And yeah, oh my god, I'm so excited for this one. I really love this one so much. But yeah, if I do end up finishing all the prompts early, which I doubt I will, but in case, I will probably also reread Providence Girls for the readathon as well, for this specific prompt. Next is translated, and for that one I picked Villains Are Destined to Die Volume 2. I read Volume 1 for Creeptober last year. I had owned Volume 1 for like over a year at that point, or maybe even longer. I know that Steph always yapped about the series, but I never took it seriously. And then I was like, you know what, I need a book with villains, and I kind of want to read a graphic novel. Let me pick up Villains Are Destined to Die. The way I was so pissed at myself and a little bit at Steph too for not trying to shove this down my throat sooner. I adored it. So yeah, I immediately ordered Volume 2. When I went, because I ordered these at Waterstones, they didn't have Volume 2, but they did have Volume 3. So when I first went to order this one, I immediately bought Volume 3 as well. So now I have Volume 2 and 3 to binge if I want to. I think this series has like 7 volumes, and these volumes are expensive. Like, this bitch was 23 bucks. Girl, I can buy a hardback for that. But then again, it is very heavy, and also it's colored, so I'm guessing it's the printing that costs an arm and a leg. But you know. Next is Out of Your Comfort Zone, which, yes, I did pick Gideon the Ninth for that one. I originally started reading Gideon the Ninth. I got on page 16 or 17. Let me remove this bookmark. But it was during a time where I was in a heavy slump, so I ended up starting a bunch of books, got like 10 pages in maybe, and then just dropped them. I think I had the same with Firekeeper's Daughter, which I'm definitely going to try and read this year, because that one has been on my TBR for so long, and I need to get to it. But yeah, the same thing was with Gideon the Ninth, so I decided to pick this one for Out of Comfort Zone, mainly because it is sci-fi, and sci-fi isn't usually my stick. So I don't know how I'm gonna end up feeling about this. I know people adore this series. I know the lesbians love this series, so I'm hoping I can love it too. She's a chunker, but I'll be fine. And then finally, a book with a monster, which I picked How to Get a Girlfriend When You're a Terrifying Monster by Mary Cardinal, which is a book that is actually free on Kobo Plus. So I think I actually got the audiobook on Everand as well. I have no idea what this book is about. I know that it's sapphic and that it's a monster romance and it has sea monsters. So now I'm just gonna quickly talk about some of the other stuff because I do have some graphics. All the graphics are going to be available for free on my Ko-Fi. I'll leave that link down below. It's easier for me to put them on Ko-Fi just because I used to put them on a Google Drive, but I don't trust Google, so I ended up just going with Ko-Fi instead. They're there for free. Another thing that I decided to add this year to the readathon is a word search. I love little puzzles, so I just thought it would be like a fun little activity for the readathon. I also have one for my book club. I'll put it up on the screen right here. Again, this will also be available for free on my Ko-Fi. As well, if you join the Discord server, which is mainly where the readathon is going to be taking place, any additional changes or announcements will mainly be in the Discord server, so I'll also leave that one link down below. But yeah, if you don't have Discord, I say this every year specifically, although I am posting all the graphics, posting everything on Discord, I'm also adding it to my Ko-Fi and also having the readathon be a storygraph challenge, specifically because I know not everyone has Discord, not everyone wants to have Discord, so that way anyone who still wants to join can still join through there. When it comes to Discord, I'm also planning on doing a movie night. Last year we watched both of the Barbie Mermaidia movies. I don't know what we'll watch this year. I'll still have to look and decide, but yeah, we're gonna have some extra stuff over there. But if all of that doesn't interest you and you don't particularly feel like joining a Discord server or having Discord to begin with, you can always join with the storygraph challenge. Also, the game board as well will be available on my Ko-Fi. I'll also have the graphic for the TBR as well on my Ko-Fi. My camera's about to die. I'll probably add a better outro when I'm editing. But anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you feel like joining the readathon, again, you can either join the Discord server or you can join both, or the storygraph challenge, but again, you can join both. Or if you want to join neither, you can also just like look at the prompts and just play by yourself. Again, for all updates, it will mainly be on Discord, but I'll also try during the month of May also give some updates on my Instagram and also on Threads if necessary. So yeah, let me know in the comments what your TBR is, if you are planning on joining, or if you have any recommendations for any books, games, movies, anything. Feel free to leave them in the comments down below. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one.